Hello everyone, I'm the storyteller, and I'm here to accompany you today. I know you're watching this video to relax or help you sleep. So first, please like and subscribe. Where are you from? What time is it? Relax, unwind, and enjoy the moment. I took a job at a haunted motel. The guests are not human. I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw the ad. Night clerk wanted. No experience necessary. High pay. Cash only. That last part stood out. Nobody pays in cash anymore, and definitely not at the rate they were offering. 3 times what a normal graveyard shift job would pay. But I was desperate. Rent was overdue, my car was on the verge of breaking down, and my fridge was as empty as my bank account. The motel sat on the outskirts of town, a crumbling relic from the 70s, barely visible from the highway. The neon sign flickered erratically, buzzing like a dying insect. Moonlight Motel, it read, though half the letters were burnt out. Moonlight Motel. It looked abandoned, but as I pulled into the cracked parking lot, I saw a single light glowing from the office window. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of mildew and something else, something metallic, like rust or blood. Behind the desk sat a man who looked like he hadn't slept in years. His skin was pale, almost translucent under the flickering fluorescent lights, and his eyes were sunken, shadowed by deep circles. "You here for the job?" His voice was flat, emotionless. I hesitated before nodding. He pushed a set of keys across the desk. "You start tonight." "No interview?" I asked. "Not necessary." I should have walked out right then, but the weight of my empty wallet kept me rooted to the spot. I swallowed my unease. "Any rules?" The man's gaze darkened. His lips barely moved as he spoke. "Never question the guests." A chill crawled up my spine. I wanted to ask what he meant, but something in his expression told me I wouldn't like the answer. Instead, I nodded, took the keys, and stepped behind the counter. The man stood up and grabbed his coat. "I'll be back at dawn. Don't leave the office. Don't talk too much. And whatever you see on the cameras, ignore it." Before I could respond, he was gone, leaving me alone in the dim, humming silence of the Moonlight Motel. And that was the beginning of the longest night of my life. At first, the shift was quiet. Too quiet. The only sound was the steady ticking of the old wall clock and the occasional gust of wind rattling the windows. I busied myself organizing the scattered papers on the desk, trying to ignore the peeling wallpaper and the faint smell of something rotten wafting from the vents. The guest log sat open in front of me. I flipped through the pages. Something was off. The names were strange. Some were illegible, written in symbols I didn't recognize. Others were just initials, or single words like Mr. White or Mother. And then there were the dates. The most recent check-in was 3 days ago. No checkouts. Before that, a week, 2 weeks, a month. Pages and pages of guests arriving but never leaving. A shiver crept up my spine. The bell above the office door jingled, and I nearly jumped out of my chair. A man stood in the doorway. At least I thought it was a man. His face was wrong. Something about the way the shadows fell across it made it seem like his features were shifting, like his mouth and nose weren't quite where they should be. His suit was too clean, too crisp, like it had just been ironed moments before. He didn't blink. "I need a room," he said. His voice didn't match his lips. There was a lag, like a badly dubbed movie. I forced a smile, pretending not to notice. "Sure. How many nights?" He tilted his head slightly. "Just the one." A lie. I knew that now. I handed him a key, trying not to let my fingers touch his as he took it. His skin was ice cold. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the hallway. His footsteps were off. Too slow, too deliberate. Like he was mimicking how a person should walk, but not quite getting it right. I watched him disappear into the shadows of the motel's dimly lit corridor. I should have ignored the cameras, like the manager said, but I didn't. I turned to the monitor, watching the grainy black and white feed of the hallway outside room 6 where the man had just gone. He stood in front of the door, motionless. Seconds passed, then minutes. He didn't move. Then all at once, the screen flickered with static, and when the image returned, the man was staring directly into the camera. His face was too close, stretched unnaturally across the screen, as if he knew I was watching. And then, he smiled. Not a normal smile. Not a human smile. It was too wide, stretching from ear to ear, his teeth long and needle-like, gleaming in the flickering light. I slammed the monitor off. I didn't sleep at all that night, and when dawn came, the man was gone, but the key to room 6 was still on the desk, untouched. The second night felt heavier. I hadn't slept after what I saw on the cameras. Even in daylight, the motel felt wrong. The air was stale, too still, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. When I arrived for my shift, the manager barely acknowledged me. He sat in the office for a few minutes, staring at the wall before muttering, "You stayed. Good." Then he left, leaving me alone with whatever the hell was lurking in this place. The night started slow. I spent the first few hours flipping through the old guest logs, trying to make sense of the bizarre entries. I found names that had been repeated over and over across different years, decades even. Mr. White, Mother, H. Carter. The same names, the same rooms, but always new dates. The wind howled outside, the walls groaned like they were breathing. Then, around 2 a.m., the noise started, a faint scratching coming from inside the vents. At first, I tried to ignore it. Rats, I told myself, or maybe just the old pipes settling. But the sound grew louder, more deliberate. It wasn't just random scurrying, it was pacing. A slow, dragging movement, like something was crawling just beneath the surface. I turned up the tiny radio on the desk, trying to drown it out. That's when the phone rang. The motel phone. The one that had been silent all night. I picked it up, hesitant. Front desk. Static. Then a voice, faint, whispering. "Help me." My breath caught in my throat. "Who is this?" Silence. And then, thump. The sound came from inside the vent, just above my head. I stumbled back, heart hammering. Dust trickled from the metal grates. Whatever was inside was right there, pressing against the thin barrier. The metal creaked, bending outward slightly, as if something was pushing from the other side. I grabbed the flashlight from the desk and aimed it at the vent. "Who's in there?" No answer. Just breathing. Shallow, ragged breathing. Then, slowly, something moved. A shadow shifted behind the grate. A long, pale hand with fingers too many and too thin slipped through one of the gaps. It twitched, stretching unnaturally, grasping at the air. I staggered back. What the hell? The vent dented outward, as if whatever was inside had thrown itself against it. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I grabbed the office door handle, ready to run. But then, just as suddenly as it started, the noise stopped. I stood there, frozen, barely breathing. Minutes passed. The air was thick, oppressive. The vent remained still. And then, the phone rang again. I picked it up with a shaking hand. Static. And then, the voice, closer this time. "Don't look at them." The line went dead. I nearly quit that night. But when dawn came, the manager returned as if nothing had happened. He didn't ask why my hands were shaking, didn't ask why the vent was dented, or why I had unplugged the security cameras. He just dropped an envelope of cash on the desk and said, "See you tonight." And like an idiot, I showed up again. The third night felt worse. The motel seemed darker, the air heavier, the lights flickered more than usual. The neon sign outside buzzed like a dying fly, barely illuminating the lot. And the guests, they were watching me. They didn't talk, not really. They'd come in, ask for a room in voices that barely sounded human, and disappear into the hall. I avoided eye contact, keeping my head down, pretending not to notice the way their faces shifted when they moved. Then, around midnight, she arrived. A woman. She was different from the others. She looked normal. Her face didn't change when I blinked. Her movements were smooth, natural. She had deep, sunken eyes, and her dark hair hung in wet strands over her face like she had just stepped out of a storm. She leaned in close when she spoke. "Please, I need a room." Her voice was hoarse, desperate. I hesitated. "How many nights?" Her hand clamped over mine, ice cold. "Just one." The same lie they all told. I gave her the key to room 9. She didn't thank me, didn't even look at it. She just snatched it from my hand and hurried down the hallway, glancing over her shoulder as if something were following her. I watched her on the cameras. Unlike the others, she didn't just stand in front of her door. She locked it, bolted it, pushed the dresser in front of it. Then she sat on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, eyes glued to the door. I don't know why, but I felt compelled to check on her. Maybe because she seemed scared. Maybe because she seemed real. I grabbed the master key and made my way down the hall. The motel felt suffocating, like the walls were pressing in. Every door I passed felt wrong, like something was breathing on the other side. When I reached room 9, I knocked softly. "Ma'am, everything okay?" Then a whisper. "They know I'm here." My stomach twisted. "Who?" She didn't answer. But suddenly her eyes snapped to something behind me. I turned, and for the first time I saw one of them. One of the guests, standing at the end of the hall, too tall, too thin, a silhouette darker than the shadows around it. Its head was tilted too far, its face blank. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, featureless skin stretched over bone. It twitched, taking a jerky step forward. The lights flickered, and then another one appeared, and another, stepping out of the rooms, emerging from the darkness, surrounding me. The woman in room 9 grabbed my wrist, yanking me inside just as the lights went out. I didn't fight her. I didn't question it. Because for the first time since I started this job, I knew one thing for certain. I was never supposed to leave this motel. The woman's grip was like ice, her nails digging into my skin as she slammed the door shut. "Turn off the light," she hissed. I barely had time to react before she reached past me and twisted the lamp's switch. The room plunged into darkness. My pulse pounded in my ears as we stood there, barely breathing. Then the footsteps started, slow, uneven, right outside the door. I wanted to move, to hide, to do something, but the woman squeezed my wrist tighter, her silent warning clear. "Don't." The floorboards creaked. Something was standing outside. The doorknob twitched. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay still. The darkness pressed against me, heavy and suffocating. I could hear it breathing. Or maybe that was the woman. Or maybe it was something else. Then something slid under the door. A shadow. Long, stretching across the carpet like fingers, curling toward my feet. I felt a cold, unnatural pull, like it was trying to drag me closer. My breath hitched as I took a tiny step back, but the second I moved, the shadow snapped toward me. The woman clamped a hand over my mouth before I could scream. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Don't move. Don't speak. It can't see you unless you let it." The shadow twitched, hesitated, and then it retracted. The footsteps retreated, slow and deliberate. The door creaked as something leaned against it, its weight pressing against the wood. I could feel it there, waiting. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Then, nothing. It was gone. The woman finally let go of me, and I sucked in a ragged breath. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. She didn't answer at first. She just walked to the window and peeled back the curtain an inch, peering outside. Then she whispered 2 words that made my stomach drop. "You saw them." I didn't respond. I didn't know how to respond. She turned to face me, her sunken eyes full of something like pity. "You shouldn't have come to this place." "I didn't have a choice," I muttered. Her expression darkened. None of us did. Something about the way she said that made my skin crawl. I took a shaky breath. "What are they?" The woman hesitated. "They don't have a name. Not one we can say." I shook my head. "That doesn't make any sense." She ignored me, stepping closer. "How long have you been working here?" 3 nights, I said. Her face twisted with something like grief. That's too long. My stomach clenched. What do you mean? She gestured toward the door. Did you notice? The ones who check in? I nodded slowly. They don't leave. Neither do the employees. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I shook my head. No, the manager, he leaves every morning. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Does he? The room felt colder. A horrible thought crept into my mind. The manager was always gone when I arrived, always back before dawn. I thought about the security cameras, the flickering static, the way some guests just stood in front of their doors, unmoving, staring at nothing, the way the motel seemed bigger at night, the hallways stretching longer than they should. What is this place? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, pressing it into my hand. A room key, but not just any key. It was old, rusted, the number worn away. The metal was ice cold, like it had been sitting in a freezer. What is this? I asked. Her voice was hollow. The key to the real exit. My blood ran cold. There is no front door, she whispered. Not really. That thing you walk through every night, it just brings you back in. I wanted to deny it, to argue, but deep down, I felt the truth in her words. I gripped the key tighter, and then the hallway light flickered. The air shifted. The woman went pale. They know, she whispered. They know I told you. A deep, rattling click echoed from the hallway, like every door was unlocking. And then, the motel came alive. The walls groaned, the ceiling trembled, shadows leaped from under the door. The air was thick with the sound of something moving, countless bodies shifting, twitching, crawling. The woman grabbed my arm. Run! The door burst open, and I saw all of them. Not just the guests, not just the manager, something else. Something that had been waiting for me since the moment I arrived. And then, the lights went out. The lights died. Total darkness swallowed the room, thick and suffocating, pressing against my skin like damp earth. I couldn't see my own hands, couldn't tell if my eyes were open or shut, but I felt them, the guests, standing in the doorway, waiting. A sound crawled through the dark, bones popping, joints twisting, something wet and wrong shifting closer. Then, a whisper right next to my ear. Where do you think you're going? Cold breath slid across my neck. I bolted. The woman grabbed my wrist, yanking me forward as we ran. I couldn't see, but she seemed to know where to go. My feet pounded against the carpet, the motel warping around us, hallways stretching, doors multiplying, the air thick with the scent of rot and something metallic like blood. The sounds behind us grew louder, faster. The guests were following, moving with that horrible, jerky twitching like broken marionettes, their 2 long limbs scraping against the walls. Where are we going? I gasped. The stairs, she whispered. We turned a corner, and suddenly, there they were, the stairs to the 2nd floor. Except, there was no 2nd floor. I stopped short. What the hell? I had seen this motel from the outside. It was 1 story, no stairs, no upper level. But here they were. A long, spiraling staircase, disappearing into the dark above us. Come on, she hissed, pulling me up the steps. I didn't fight her. As we climbed, the motel shifted around us. The walls grew taller, the air colder. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting shadows that moved on their own. A voice slithered through the dark. You don't belong here. It was everywhere. Behind us, above us, inside my own head. Then, a hand shot out from between the steps, thin, gray, fingers too long, clawing at my ankle. I kicked, hard. The thing screeched, a high, warbling sound like a skipping record. The woman yanked me up the last few steps, and suddenly, we weren't in the motel anymore. We were somewhere else. The air changed the second we stepped off the stairs. It was wrong. Heavy. We stood in a narrow hallway lined with doors. hundreds of them, more than the motel could possibly hold. They stretched endlessly in both directions, each door identical, wooden, numbered in brass. "This isn't real," I whispered. The woman ignored me, marching forward with quick, purposeful steps. "Stay close. Don't touch the doors." I followed, my heart hammering. The hallway was dead silent except for our footsteps, but I could feel something behind the doors, watching, listening. Then, as we passed room 209, knuckles rapped against the wood. I froze. The woman grabbed my arm, yanking me forward. "Don't stop." Another door knocked, then another. The sound spread like a wave, growing faster, more frantic, dozens, no hundreds of fists hammering against the wood. The hallway shook. The doors rattled in their frames, and then one swung open. A long, pale arm shot out, fingers grasping, nails splintering as they dug into the floor. The rest of it followed, a thing, crawling out on too many limbs, its head lolling, mouth yawning open in a soundless scream. We ran. The hallway stretched, growing longer, the doors warping and pulsing like breathing flesh. The lights flickered wildly, casting grotesque, shifting shadows that didn't match our movements. Something was chasing us. I didn't dare look back. Then, the woman stopped. I skidded to a halt beside her. "What the hell are you doing? Keep moving." She didn't respond. She was staring at a door, different from the others. Black. No number. No handle. "The exit," she breathed. I didn't ask questions. I reached for the key she had given me earlier, shoved it into the lock, and twisted. The door screamed. Not a creak, not a groan, a full, shrieking wail, as if the wood itself was alive. The air turned ice cold. The motel shuddered, the hallway collapsing inward. And then, the door swung open, and on the other side, there was nothing. A black void stretching endlessly. Cold air pulled at me, dragging me toward it like a gaping mouth ready to swallow me whole. The woman grabbed my wrist. "This is the only way out." I stared into the darkness. My stomach twisted with a primal, gut-wrenching fear. Something waited in that void. Something worse than the guests. The hallway behind us collapsed, doors crumbling into the walls, shadows surging forward like a living thing. We had seconds to decide. Stay in the motel, or step into the unknown. And then, the blackness reached for us. The darkness pulled. Not like gravity, not like wind. This was different. It felt alive, wrapping around my limbs, dragging me forward without touching me. The words hit me like a gut punch. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to say something logical, something rational, but I couldn't. Because I knew she was right. The parking lot, the guests, the manager. It was all too perfect. The motel looked normal. But I had already seen what was beneath the surface, and so had she. "We have to go," I whispered. She nodded, snapping out of her daze. We turned toward the door, and he was standing there. The manager, not behind the desk this time, blocking the exit. His black eyes bore into me, and his smile stretched just a little too wide. "Leaving so soon?" His voice was calm, casual, as if we hadn't just fallen through a nightmare. The woman grabbed my wrist, pulling me toward the side door. I didn't hesitate. We ran. Through the hall, past the guests, things in human skin, their faces flickering as they turned toward us, their eyes vacant, watching. We burst through the emergency exit and into the parking lot. The cars were gone. The people were gone. The world outside the motel was wrong. The road stretched forever, a perfect, unbroken black highway vanishing into an empty, starless sky. No moon, no streetlights, no sound. I turned in a slow circle, my breath turning to ice in my chest. We were alone. The woman grabbed my shoulders. "There has to be a way out." I nodded because I had to believe it. But then, the neon sign flickered. I turned toward it, my stomach twisting. It no longer said Moonlight Motel. The letters shifted, warping, buzzing, rearranging themselves into something new. A single word, stay. And then, the front doors swung open, and the guests began to step outside. Slow, jerky, twitching like broken dolls. their heads twisted unnaturally, their smiles stretching too far. The manager walked out last, hands in his pockets. He looked at us with something close to amusement. "You can run," he said, "but you'll only come back." I swallowed hard. My skin crawled. "What do you mean?" I asked, though deep down I already knew. His smile widened. "You've always been here." The world lurched. The motel blinked, flickering, stretching, glitching like a dying signal. The parking lot melted into the lobby, the sky folded into wallpaper, and suddenly we were inside again, standing at the front desk, the guest log open, 2 new names written inside. Mine, hers, checked in, never checked out. My head spun. My stomach lurched. I reached for the door again, but it wasn't there anymore. Just hallways. Endless hallways stretching out where the exit should have been. The floor throbbed beneath my feet, the walls warped like breathing flesh. The woman shook her head violently. "No, no, no, this isn't real." But it was. The manager leaned against the counter, watching us with mild curiosity. "You don't get it, do you?" he said. "There's no out, no escape, no waking up." His black eyes glittered. "This place is a mouth, and it already swallowed you." I backed away. "That's bullshit. If we got in, we can get out." He chuckled. "You never got in." He tapped the guest log. "You've always been here." I felt sick. I turned to the woman. "We're leaving." She nodded quickly. "We're leaving." We took off down the hall, but the motel moved with us. The walls stretched, the lights flickered. The air grew thicker, like we were running through something alive. Doors opened on their own, revealing things that weren't human. Figures standing in the dark, their faces melting, their eyes watching. Then, a room door swung open in front of us. Room 9. Our room. The one we had never left. Inside, the TV was on, playing static. The bed was made, and on the pillows were 2 perfect imprints, like someone had been lying there just seconds ago. I froze. My stomach dropped. The woman's breath hitched. "No." She turned to me, her eyes wide and hollow. "We're still in the bed." The words barely left her lips before the walls collapsed inward. The motel shrieked, the floor split open, and I saw something beneath it all. Endless rooms, endless hallways, a never-ending maze of twisting, shifting spaces. The truth hit me all at once. This wasn't a motel. It was a trap, a place that pulled people in, that made them forget, that kept them running forever, searching for a way out that never existed. The guests weren't people. They were the ones who stopped running. And now, we were becoming them. The last thing I heard was the manager's voice, calm, smooth, final. "Welcome home." There is someone living in my basement. I never go down to my basement, not because it's scary or because I'm lazy, but because I simply don't have a reason to. I live alone in a small house that's way too big for me, and the basement has always just been a storage space. Boxes of old clothes, holiday decorations, junk I don't need but can't bring myself to throw away. It's all down there, untouched for years. At least, that's what I thought. It started with little things, things I could explain away. The basement door would be unlocked when I was sure I had locked it. A faint creaking sound at night, like wood shifting under weight. A weird smell drifting up through the vents. A mix of sweat and something else, something foul. I told myself it was just the house settling, or maybe my memory playing tricks on me. I had lived here for 5 years and nothing weird had ever happened before. Why would it start now? Then one night, I woke up to a sound that I couldn't ignore. Footsteps. Not the soft creaks of an old house shifting, not the scurrying of mice in the walls. Real, deliberate footsteps, slow, careful, coming from below me. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I stared at the bedroom door, listening. The footsteps continued for a few seconds, then stopped. Silence. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and crept out of bed. The house was dark, too dark, and the air felt wrong, heavy, like something was watching me. When I reached the basement door, I hesitated. It was closed, just like always. But this time, I noticed something I hadn't before. The doorknob was dirty. Greasy fingerprints smeared across the brass, as if someone had grabbed it with sweaty, grimy hands. I swallowed hard. I locked this door. I know I did. Taking a deep breath, I slowly turned the knob. It wasn't locked. The door swung open with a groan, revealing the black void of the basement stairs. My phone's flashlight barely cut through the darkness. I didn't want to go down there. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, to pretend I hadn't heard anything. But I had to know. Step by step, I descended. The basement was just as I remembered. Cold, cluttered, the air thick with dust. But something felt off. My skin prickled. The tiny hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Then, my light landed on something that shouldn't have been there. A sleeping bag. Old, stained, crumpled in the far corner, half hidden behind boxes. Beside it, a pile of empty food wrappers, a few plastic bottles filled with murky liquid. The smell hit me all at once. Rotting food, sweat, something worse. Someone had been living down here. Panic surged through me. I spun around, phone light darting across the basement. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. Then, movement. A figure lunged from the shadows. I barely had time to react before I was slammed against the wall. My phone flew from my hand, the flashlight spinning wildly, casting twisted shadows across the room. I couldn't see them clearly, just a hunched shape, reeking of filth and sweat, their breath ragged and wet. They didn't speak. They just laughed. A guttural, broken sound, like someone choking on their own breath. I fought, kicking, shoving, but they were strong. Fingers wrapped around my throat, squeezing, my vision blurred. Then, light, bright, blinding. My phone had landed face up, its flashlight beaming straight into my attacker's face. For the first time I saw them. Gaunt, sunken eyes, greasy, matted hair, a face so thin it barely looked human, lips pulled back in a grin too wide, teeth yellow and jagged. But the worst part? I knew this face. It was me. Or at least it looked like me. Before my mind could process it, the figure shrieked and scrambled back, scuttling into the darkness like a cockroach. I didn't wait. I ran. Up the stairs, through the door, slamming it shut behind me. I locked it, pushed a chair in front of it. Then I ran to my bedroom, grabbed my keys and phone, and bolted out of the house. I called the police from my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. When they arrived, they found nothing. No sleeping bag, no food wrappers, no bottles, no one. But the basement smelled. The cops noticed it too. That awful, rotting stench. They searched the whole house. Nothing was stolen, no signs of forced entry. They told me it was probably a squatter, that maybe I had interrupted them, and they fled through some hidden exit. But I know what I saw. I know who I saw. I haven't been back to the house since. I don't think I ever will. Because somewhere, in the darkness of that basement, something is still down there, and it looks just like me.